On this episode of Calibishie Chronicle, I will be dealing with a little bit of the politics of Calibishie, and by this I mean electoral politics. And there is no way you could discuss electoral politics about or of Calibishie and not mention Mr. Osborne Theodore. He was also called BORNE. He was the first Calibishie person and only since to have served as Member of Parliament responsible for the affairs of the village. Since BORNE, there has been no other. And I'm not too sure why, but I have a theory. Because my grandfather, Mr. Nibs Alexander, told me that he warned Osborne Theodore. Buy me one the man, you know. I tell him, don't get involved in the politics business because that thing is dirty. Anyway, so my grandfather is giving me that story. And of course, I'll have a caveat about getting involved in politics towards the end. But that's my grandfather speaking. He said, BORNE, that thing called politics is dirty, you know, man. Nigga asked me to go up for politics and me no go. Man, no go. When you go in them thing, in them sudden day, like when you go into these things, you go in as Mr. Theodore. When you come out as something else. Anyway, BORNE did not listen to my grandfather, and he actually went and he got involved, and he faced the wrath of the people because in the 70s, the government of Patrick John, who was the Prime Minister, fell, and Osborne Theodore was a member of that government. That's what my grandfather told me, because I could not remember the travails of the late 70s. Because what did I know at that time now? We didn't know much. But the long story short is that BORNE and his team of members of government were thrown out of office. He was actually stoned out on the hill where BORNE has his house. People went there for BORNE and said, come out, we come for you. And that's the story that I was told. So my thinking is that coming out of all this shenanigans, the people of the village felt, just as my grandfather felt then, that this business of politics is not for us. So generally people from the village have not stepped up to get involved in politics, and I think that's the mistake that we have made, because the stoning of BORNE incident was just one isolated case, and I see so many people who could have gone on to get involved in electoral politics to represent Calibishie and probably do more for Calibishie, because BORNE meant well. BORNE, I was told, was the Minister for Communication and Works, and he had good plans, but those plans would not materialize because his government was prematurely taken out of office. And then the story ends with my grandfather accordingly saying that BORNE actually came back to him and said, man, you were telling the truth, you know, because I used to be Mr. Theodore for real, and now they call me Gobe. Gobe is a name, I think, of a dubious character, and that somehow that name was pinned on BORNE, on Mr. Theodore, because of his involvement in politics. Now, again, as I said, politics is not necessarily evil, because look at the politicians who have done well for themselves, representing Calibishie in other places. We could have somebody from Calibishie too stepping up and probably representing us, because what I have seen is that the people who represent the communities that they are from, those communities normally get stuff done. So it would be nice to have somebody in the parliament from Calibishie, representing Calibishie. I cannot see Calibishie not progressing by having somebody representing our affairs in the parliament. No, I'm not being political here. And even if I'm being, so what? The fact is, I'm making a point about the village in terms of the story of the village, and trying to connect the lack of participation of Calibishie people in active politics, and probably stating it is because of the treatment that our Calibishie brother, father, uncle BORNE had gotten back in the 70s. But I think 70s is in the 70s, and I think in the contemporary era, young people and anybody from the community should step up and get more involved. I think we should become a bit more assertive, and I think when we do, Calibishie will get its rightful dues. And I will speak a bit more about the politics. I will go back to the days of freedom, and even before that, labor, and speak about how Calibishie had been aligned and realigned along the partisan line. But these are very interesting tales that the younger generation of Calibishie people must understand if we are to make a difference as we step forward in the future of our village. This is it. For this particular episode, we will continue on another vein sometime later on.